Well, I'm really excited about this because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and as I've mentioned on many occasions, Saturday Night Live happens to be one of my all-time favorite shows. And this week, I'm doing something very special here. I'm getting to speak with someone who is a part of an entire network that's kind of revolved around everything Saturday Night Live. I kind of stumbled upon him a couple years ago and been a fan ever since. I'm talking about the Saturday Night Network, which produces all kinds of awesome shows and interviews with past cast members and hosts and all kinds of great stuff. And I'm here with one of the hosts, Jon Schneider. Jon, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so touched that you're a listener and that you've checked out everything that we're doing, and really just wonderful to get to speak to you.
Great to speak to you as well. Well, let's get right into it. The Saturday Night Network, it's been around for a while. When did you guys get started officially?
So we started in 2020, believe it or not. I can't believe it's been 5 years,
Right.
almost. But we really started during COVID. So I have a background as a professional event MC and DJ. And when it was COVID times, there was no events for me to go out and, polish my craft. So I was trying to, think about what I wanted to do. And I was a really big fan of Saturday Night Live. And I had a side hobby called SNL Stats, which was a Twitter account that every time a new episode would come out, I would post statistics about it. I ended up getting reached out to by some people who worked at the show and family members of cast members who were like writing to me to find out just if I had like any information about ways that maybe like they can do better on the show.
Mhm.
And I was really like, this is crazy. And then we just got to talk back and forth. And then I was trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And it was sort of suggested to me of like, why don't you turn the stats into a podcast? So long story short, we made a podcast called SNL Stats. I invited some like journalists from different publications onto some group roundtables to talk about every episode. And it sort of got pretty big from there, to my surprise. And at that point, we were, I was talking to some of the people who we were working with, and they were just like, what if this was something bigger? And we eventually made it a big network of shows with multiple shows each week and some live shows as well. We converted everything over to like live shows with the community. And yeah, that's sort of, how that materialized.
That's amazing to just start something from the ground up and to actually get, attract the people that you're talking about. I mean, how did that feel when they were like starting to reach out to you and was like, tell us what we need to do. You tell us. How did that feel? What did that feel like?
It was really, really crazy. It was just like one of those things where, Saturday Night Live is a really interesting show because it is very similar to live sports, where you're watching things happen and you don't know who's going to succeed or fail or win or lose on a given week. But the major difference, or at least one of the major differences, is in that in sports, there's like the fourth rail or the third rail of like media, where they get to go into the locker room and they get to ask questions to the, reporters will communicate. And then there's sort of a bridge that's created between the athletes and the people watching the sports. Whereas with Saturday Night Live, there's always been this sort of separation between the show itself and the people who watch it, because like no one knows like how you get on the show. Like a lot of the things that happen there become mysteries. So for me, I was like, what if we could position ourselves as that bridge between the fans and the show? And when people started reaching out, I was like, okay, this maybe is more realistic.
It started becoming real, and it went from just being like a podcast idea to an actual network that was proving to be not just, possibly profitable and exciting, but like it was actually grabbing people and people in the business. And so that just had to have just been an incredible feeling.
It really was. And I learned very early on a lot about podcasting. I was a big podcast listener. So for me, I was like sort of like taking a little bit of all the shows that I liked and putting that into my show. But I think one of the major things that I learned very early on was that there's a huge difference between like a podcast where people just talk to each other and it's almost like a conversation between friends, and one where the listener really feels a part of that conversation so that you're building community. And that's where I realized the big difference for us was, in order to succeed, we needed to build community. So everything I've done from that point forward has been to make the SNL family, the people who watch the show, feel as if they're a part of what we're doing at the Saturday Night Network.
That's incredible, and it's so immersive. It's so interesting to just kind of keep up with like when the show's going on, the tweets and everything like that, or the X's, whatever it's called now. But you know, all the things that you guys are keeping up with, who did this, who did that. Is it you or is it somebody in your organization that sits and figures out? Because this is always incredible to me when I see the amount of time each person is in an episode. Do you sit there and figure that out? How long each person is in each episode, or do you have somebody else that does that?
So that's not me. That would be Mike Murray, who hosts our By the Numbers show that we do on Wednesdays during live SNL weeks. He is absolutely brilliant. And it's not just like sitting there with a stopwatch. Like he has like a million stopwatches going at the same time as he's calculating all of this info. And even when like I first started doing this, I was collecting a lot of quantitative data or counting stats. So when like someone would say live from New York, I would like be like, okay, where are we in terms of record breaking statistics there? But I refer to what Mike does as advanced analytics, where these are like really deep things that you can't see with the naked eye, but he has access to. And it's so crazy how indicative it is about success on the show with what he's able to figure out. For like last year, when he did his power rankings, which is sort of like a metric that combines screen time with like weighted appearances, he was able to determine which cast members would not be asked back months before those decisions were made.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, you're incredible. Like it was just so cool.
So did he predict Chloe Trost? Because I think that was criminal that she got let go after last season. I loved her. So did he
Yeah.
predict that she was going to be let go as well?
So she was near the bottom of the list, and he did say that there's a good chance that this happens, but he probably didn't. He probably said like, people near the bottom of his rankings tend to be the ones considered for being let go. Except usually there's like that rookie thing where they get that extra boost, and if they're getting that hype, they get asked back. And in the specific case of Chloe, I think on screen, just like electric. Like I think she was one of the best prospects we had in a while. Off screen, it just like didn't seem to work. So I think that was a huge surprise for people.
Right. How does she compare to the newbies from this season, like Ashley Padilla, Jane Wickline, Emo? How does she compare? How are they doing comparatively?
You know, we'll take it one by one. So I think Jane is probably having a little bit tougher of a time. She comes from TikTok, which I think is a market that they're still trying to capture. They brought on Marcelo a few years ago, and he was huge on TikTok, and he's seemed to be a pretty big success for them in the last year or so. But Jane has like a voice that hasn't, to me, translated fully to the show yet. A lot of the things that she's done that have been really successful are stuff that she's done on TikTok and then bringing it to the show. And typically when that happens, you're talking about like a square peg in a round hole situation where it's like she's like very unique in terms of her personality, but maybe not right for the current version of the show. So for her, I think it's been a struggle. For Emil, he's had a really fascinating rookie campaign where his first half of the season was one of the best we've seen in a while. He became like that next utility player that feels like they're going to throw him in any sketch. And then I think he hit a bit of a rookie wall where they just started prioritizing other people. And last week that we had an episode in the John Hamm episode, he did that amazing update piece. And for me, I was like, that could be the thing that we all look back on one day and say, when things were headed downhill, he had this moment that the producers gave him. Bam, now he's back to being a star. So I feel pretty good about Emil, and I think he probably will be asked back. Ashley is just unbelievable. She's one of the best actors that has been on the show in a long, long time. Could be the best since Kristen Wiig that they've had as just pure acting. And she comes from the Groundlings, which is so exciting for me because they've leaned so heavy on stand-ups the last few years, where they just like, because of COVID, because of all these troops being closed, they couldn't go and find these people. and now they found Ashley. And I think that she hasn't had that moment in a live sketch that everyone's going to be talking about for years to come, but she's had these small, subtle moments that we point out every week that are just truly fantastic, including one update piece a few weeks ago as like this Joanne Fabrics woman, and it was just unreal. So for her, I also think one of the best prospects in a very long time.
For sure. Now you talk about a utility player. She's one of those you can just put anywhere as any kind of character, and she'll bring it to life. One way or the other, she'll figure it out. So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely I think out of those three, she's got the best prospects of moving on for sure.
I would agree. I think that it's interesting because she's so good. The question will be, does the show let her take over at some
Mm.
point? Because they've been really ensemble for a long time now. So is she the type of player that's going to achieve her potential? Because I think she has as high of a ceiling as a Cecily Strong or Kate McKinnon or Kristen Wiig, just talking about like more modern women on the show. So we'll see. I mean, that's the fascinating part of watching the show is you never know what's going to happen next.
Exactly. And you mentioned the ensemble. We're getting to that kind of next point where there's a lot of popular cast members. Bowen Yang is everywhere now. You see Heidi Gardner a lot as well. Chloe Fineman just did a movie. Who do you think? Do you think everybody will come back next season, or do you think that we may lose some people after this season?
I just want to make sure you can hear me properly because I'm a little bit frozen on my end. Can you see me okay?
Oh, I can. Well, no, your picture's frozen, but I can't hear you.
Okay, hold on. Okay,
You're good.
are we good now?
Yeah, you're good. There you go.
Okay, apologies.
You're good.
So your question, just to clarify, your question was to who's coming back next year?
Yeah, who do you think would anybody leave between the summer and next season?
This is the $1 million question, honestly, because the truth is that there really should be turnover this summer.
Hmm.
The feeling is that, and I think we're in a little bit of like a mini era between seasons 48 and season 50 right now, where a lot of cast members left after season 47, and I still think they're like finding what this next era is going to look like. But there really should be turnover because you would think conventionally that people would have waited for the 50th celebration, wanting to be the cast that is there during the biggest season ever, and then would take their time to leave the show. But you never know. I mean, Lauren's sticking around. It seems like they want to keep things going for season 51. So it's really hard for me to guess, to be honest with you, what's going to happen. I would think we probably lose two, three, four people and add a couple more. But if I think, like, if I had to be a realist, do I think that they're like gutting the place? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, and talking about Lauren, I'm convinced the only way they're going to get him out of there is on a stretcher. That is it. That man is going to be there until the end of time anymore, which is good. I mean, I love his longevity and I've loved how much he's done. But that leads to another good question: if when and if Lauren is to step down, who do you think would be the best replacement?
So I've said it for a long time. I think that Steve Higgins would have been the guy. I know he's not as young as maybe the people at NBC would have liked, but he's just been like so in the trenches for so long, and he has that like really smart business sense, but he's also a super funny guy that I think he would be the right person. So that's what I was saying a lot when I first started podcasting. I would think that now it may be like more of a committee,
Mhm.
which I don't know if people talk about too much, but I just think that the love for the show and the institution would limit people like Tina, Seth, like those type of people from letting the show die.
Mhm.
There's just like too much there. Like in 1980 or 1985, there wasn't enough like investment by the people who were at the show to save the show. So the NBC, suits needed to find somebody to come in and take over and save the show. Now I think the power of the people and the power of the people that have been there would potentially save the show. So for me, I could see this being more of like a group effort. Because there's no like one obvious character or one obvious standout person. Like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I was as you were talking about, I was sitting here thinking. I mean, you do have Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon just down the hall. You have
Yeah.
they could take over immediately, and Tina Fey. Tina Fey's name always jumps up. So I think she would be great. But I think you're right. It's like I don't think there could be just one person that could do it anymore to the success of what it is. I mean, Steve Higgins is great. I've been a lifelong Higgins fan because I remember him back in the Comedy Central days when I was a kid and so forth into SNL and now being on the Tonight Show and everything. He's amazing. So I think you're right. I think Higgins would have a huge voice because he is one of the top producers there and just he's just funny on his own. But no, I think a committee probably would do it justice, like a little hands on deck from an input from a lot of different, higher functioning cast member brains from, over the course of time. Like like Colin Jost and Michael Che could step in and be part of the team that could run the show. They've got that sense. Not that there's nobody that couldn't do it, but the people that could do it justice are like your Seth Meyers, your Tina Fey, your Colin Jost, your Michael Chase, those people that just know how to not just do comedy, but also run a business in a business sense, because they were all head writers at one point.
I completely agree. I just, it's interesting. Like they just made an announcement a couple weeks ago that they're thinking about or launching SNL UK next year.
Mhm.
So this thing is only getting bigger. It's not getting smaller right now, and I'm sure that there has to be some sort of succession plan in place. Um, I would hate for the hype around the future of the show to be around the death of Lorne Michaels. Like that to me is not like fun for me to cover the show in that way. I would rather at some point there's like some sort of transition that will be more interesting to see how like somebody's footprints or fingerprints affect the show. But it's interesting. I mean, this is like a part of a much larger conversation. But I think like SNL has been such a monopoly for so many years that they've always, since the early 2000s, there hasn't been like a competitor that's come around and been like, oh, could this really challenge Saturday Night Live?
Mhm.
And I do wonder in the post Lauren world if there's something else out there that develops that becomes a rival to SNL because he's not there to protect it.
Absolutely. And I didn't even think about that. I mean, when Johnny Carson stepped down, that's when every single late night talk show popped out of the woodwork. So yeah, once he steps down, late night sketch comedy could be in trouble at that point. Because Mad TV was a good competitor, but it drew a different crowd. And eventually that crowd faded away. So, it was the only, in my opinion, best competitor that they had. And then, yeah, ever since then, they haven't had anybody. But you're right. I mean, just everyone would probably try to grasp at the opportunity to try to go up against SNL if he left.
I mean, you got to think, I mean, the landscape has changed so much. It's interesting to think about, like, what if a Netflix created a version of Saturday Night Live that aired live on Netflix the way that, Chris Rock's comedy special airs live.
And
So
uncensored at that.
yeah, they have the budget, they have the ability, they can get stars. I mean, look at what they're doing with John Mulaney's talk show now, which
Mhm.
is like dipping their toe in the water of late night television. Ted Sarandos is like a really good friend of Lorne Michaels, so I don't think he's like doing this right now. But in the future, like there's no doubt that if there was some sort of live sketch comedy show that aired on Netflix, the key to me is that it's global, right? Because, live from New York, it's SNL. People in Australia are not able to watch SNL, in the traditional way that we can.
Right.
It could be an absolute game changer. So I sort of think that like for me as a pundit and analyst of the show, it is like just utterly fascinating what this could turn into.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And you mentioned a couple times the 50th anniversary. You guys got to be there at the 50th anniversary. You were talking to everybody as they were coming in. I got to know, what was that like? What was the atmosphere like that night when you guys were just there with every single major star that SNL has ever produced?
It was completely surreal. Sometimes you hear about these things that like people go through and they say that and you don't know what it's really like. But like when I was there, I wasn't like I felt like I wasn't like fully living through what was happening. Like it was just like I was like imagine like you would just watch all these people on TV your entire life and all of a sudden they're like come through the TV and they're reeling in front of you. So that was very weird for me. I had prepared for the moment for about a year. I rewatched the entire SNL series to just experience the 50th like in the way that I felt like it could be, which was like a big mental investment of like just trying to like get through everything and note things that I wanted to remember better for covering the show. So that was a huge part. And then I got to go to the concert first, which was really, really cool. And just to sort of like be in the lobby and like talk to a bunch of people that I knew that I've interviewed over the last few years was awesome. But then on the Sunday night, to be media on the carpet was insane. Again, just going from like the small little podcast a few years back to being the only podcast that was invited to the 50th.
Oh.
I was there next to like publications that have like millions of followers. And we're doing like okay, but it's like not to the same level as like being next to I don't even know, like Variety and then like NBC Boston, like like different affiliates. It was just wild. And the Today Show was recording right next to us, so you could like see us during the live broadcast of the red carpet. And then like all of a sudden, just like these huge stars start coming in. And I just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it with everybody. I don't know when I'm ever gonna get to see all these people again. So like I'll have no regrets about it. And it was incumbent on me to just say, like, hey, Adam Sandler, do you want to come over and talk? Tom Hanks, Alec Baldwin, Jimmy Fallon. It just like kept getting crazier and crazier. And believe it or not, we spoke to one person from every season of SNL.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That I mean that's got to be I can't even wrap my mind around that you got to be a part of all of that history in one weekend. But then yeah, okay, I'll just ask from the 70s, who did you speak to?
So we spoke to Lorraine Newman, one of the original cast members, and Chevy Chase, so the original SNL star. I think also Alan Zweibel was a cast member in season 5 and a writer as well. Trying to think if there was anybody else, but yeah, I mean, it was like, yeah, I mean, Chevy Chase, like he's like a madman, but still, like to get to talk to him for a minute, it was crazy.
That's so awesome. And did you actually get to watch the 50th indoors at 8H, or did you have
No,
to?
I wish we did, honestly. At the 40th, they invited all the media to be in the room, but they had so many people that they couldn't fit us in. So we were there. I would say we were taking down our equipment probably during the cold open. But one of the really nice things that we did is that we rented a bar like near 30 Rock for our podcasters that were local and some of our patrons to come on over, and we just had a private floor where we were showing it, and then it walked on over, and like it would have been really cool to watch it in the studio, but that was like a really also fulfilling moment for me to just like be like, hey, this is like the community that we created, and to be with everybody was really nice too.
You got to be a part of history regardless of where you were that night. So I mean, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And this I really wanted to bring up because you were passionate about this after this episode aired, and I want to know because he's a local boy in my area because I come from East Tennessee. Is,
Okay.
is this the nail in the coffin for Morgan Wallen to be on the show? Was that it? Can we be done with that now? Because I'm on your side in this. Do you think that's it? Do you think they'll never invite him back?
No. I think no, I'm back. I mean, I didn't say that he would be banned. I said that he should be banned, but that doesn't mean that I mean, SNL will always find a way to invite somebody with an interesting story to come to the show, and that's the beauty of getting the podcast about it, is that like if you can find the narrative in any SNL episode, you can create great content from it. So for me, do I think Morgan Wallen is coming back in season 51? Probably not. But like a few years down the road, I mean, the guy's a huge success, right? Like if he ends up coming back in season like 55 or whatever, most of the cast will be like turned over by then, so there won't be any like hard feelings, I guess. I could definitely see it, and it will create like such a storyline that I think it would be worth doing. But my personal problem with it is that just like I have a lot of experience talking to these cast members, which is something that I don't want to like shy away from too much anymore, just because like I think that it's interesting for people to hear about. And I get like a lot of feedback that like there are things that sometimes happen there that they just can't talk about. It's just like in the DNA of the show that like they need to be off the show and many years away from it to be able to like look back and explain. And I felt like this is like living history one of these moments where something happens that people are going to talk about for generations, and people at the show cannot reveal their true feelings about it at the, I guess, expense of like protecting their jobs and like being getting a talking to by PR or like whatever it is. So for me, I sort of felt like, hey, maybe they don't care, maybe they don't want it to be a story, but I think probably deep down, most of them were pissed off at Morgan Wallen. So to disrespect, the institution a little bit, I felt like it was worth saying something.
I agree. I agree. And just by the looks on their faces, I don't think they were thrilled with the situation. They were more confused than anything else. And then once it, continued on, I think they realized, oh, okay, that was just a smack in the face. And it just, it's one of those situations where it's like you didn't have to go to begin with. You could have turned them down, yet you go and then you don't participate in the festivities of the thing you're going to, and you're one of the main stars of that evening. It made me mad because people were defending him online like, oh, he doesn't have to stay for the good night. No, but it's like, but it's Saturday Night Live. There's a pattern of things that have to be
Right.
done from 11:30 to 1 a.m. So it just doesn't make sense to sit through all of it. And the fact that he's from my area, and I'm like, this is the first person in God knows how long to break protocol at SNL. I was just dumbfounded. But
Well, you know what's crazy though? It's that like, I love country music. Like I'm like one of the rare people who like doesn't like I live in Canada. I love country music, and like I happen to like enjoy a lot of Morgan Wallen music. Like for me, it was like cool to I was excited to like hear his new album and see if there were songs that I like. When I DJ, like I played like Last Night like by him like a lot. So for me, it was like, okay, great. This is kind of an interesting story because there's a layer to it in that in season 46, he was booked for the show. And instead of, showing up like he maybe should have, he was at a bar making out with people like in the middle of COVID, and they had to cancel his appearance. And then they brought him back a couple months later and they did a whole sketch about it. And it was sort of like, okay, we gave you a second chance. Like, this is really fun. And like, let's bygones be bygones. So for me, it was like, well, like they already gave you a second chance. Now you're like, don't like the show. Like, it's weird. To me, this was like a favor that they were doing to him, not that he
right.
was doing to them. And, just like you agreed with me or saw people disagreeing with me, I got so many messages in my inbox saying like, you're a snowflake or like, you're horrible.
We still using that as an insult. Is that still a thing?
But like,
Snowflake.
I didn't even say anything political. That's the thing.
Right.
Is like
Yeah.
people
Exactly.
are like so like interpreting it that I'm saying this only because Morgan Wallen is like a Trump supporter when like I didn't say anything. Like people don't know my own politics and people don't know what I think about his politics. Like it had nothing to do with that. And like that's the thing for me is like I can I can have like a mature conversation about like how somebody feels about a serious issue, but like all I was talking about was how he treated Saturday Night Live. So like people are like wild.
No, and I agree. I 100% agree with you. It's like, again, it has nothing to do with politics. Yeah, he's a country musician. He may be a Trump supporter, but at the end of the day, it all has to do with respect of the institution that you're a part of. And I don't know. Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm just glad I wasn't the only one. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But we're coming close to the end of season 50. We've got a new episode next Saturday, May 3rd. What do you expect from that episode, and what do you see for the rest of the season?
So I love Quinta Brunson. She
Mhm.
is awesome. I've gotten to interview her twice now, and she is just like the cutest person. I don't know how else to describe it. She's like miniature in stature, and obviously, if you watch Abbott Elementary, like she's so funny, and she's just like super nice. She told me at the carpet at the 50th that she like thanked me for all of the stats that we post because it keeps her updated on the show. So
Wow.
yeah, she's a huge fan of the show, and her episode in season 48 was fantastic. So I think this is a huge win for the show to get her back. I think she's the type of person that could easily be a five-timer. And man, does this show need diversity in terms of like the hosts that we've had, especially this season. So this is like a huge win for the show that they're getting her. I expect to have a ton of fun with this episode. I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And you're not wrong. Somebody pointed out, and I didn't really realize until they did, there are no African Americans in the Five Timers Club. And that's criminal because
Yeah.
there's so many great African American hosts that have been there, and not just of every. ethnicity. There's been so many great hosts, and it's a shame that there hasn't been enough people to actually cross over into that five timers club. And you're right, she's definitely a perfect candidate for that.
Yeah, definitely. There is Dwayne Johnson, who I believe is has like some diversity to. I want to be careful with my words. Like, I has some diversity to him, so like I just want to like give that caveat there to say that like The Rock is in the club, but like yes, naturally. Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, they just hosted for their fourth times. Like they could be very interesting candidates for the Five Timers Club. Yeah, it was a Saturday Night Live is a show that was very white for a very long time, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. And naturally, when you have people that are all of the same background, they're going to feel comfortable booking hosts that are they can relate to. But the show also has a really interesting, history with diversity as well, where Richard Pryor was like one of the first hosts ever to host SNL, and he hosted like one of the most iconic episodes of all time. So the impact of diversity, I think, is felt throughout the series. And it is interesting to track because I think that SNL is often a lens into history itself and pop culture and how these things develop. But now that we are in a time where, include like diversity, yeah, and it's a trigger word, but like diversity, equity, and inclusion is more important to people than ever. I think that it is always important to mention that like getting different kinds of hosts is crucial for the show more than anything, because when you have people from different backgrounds, you get different types of comedy.
Mhm.
So like sketches will feel more fresh because people have different life experiences, and then they're able to translate that into sketch work. So I always appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you're absolutely on point with so many different things. I tell you, the Morgan Wallen situation, and then just getting to live vicariously through you with all of this that's been going on with the 50th anniversary and everything. It's just amazing. And John, I love your shows, and I think you're doing amazing work. Keep up the great work, and keep bringing us all the best.
Thank you so much. I really, really great to talk to you. I'm so happy that you are a part of our community, and like feel free to reach out anytime. And I'd love to come back. Like I'm always happy to talk to people who are fans of the show. So happy to do that.
You can count on that. We've been talking with Jon Schneider of the Saturday Night Network on the Smoking Hot Podcast.